Hello everybody, what is going on? I'm Joey. Welcome back to another Stiglette Fleet tutorial. Today we're going to be doing an oil change on my 2009 Volvo C30 T5 R-Design. So like many things when working on cars, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have a safe access to underneath the vehicle. In this case, I'm going to be using ramps, but you can also jack up the car or have a lift, whatever's easiest for you, and of course is always safe. Obviously with an oil change, our other step is we need to make sure the oil is hot so we can drain it and get most of the particulate out of it, which will sit in the oil pan. That of course only drains when the oil is hot. So we'll let the car idle, get nice and warm, and then we'll add in our first product to help this oil change. So what is the magic product we'll be using first? The Liqui Moly engine flush. So this essentially is a cleaner for the oil that you put in before you change the oil. So once the oil is up to its operating temperature, you pour it in. It's going to go in there, going to let the car idle for about 15 minutes. It'll clean out all of the carbon buildup. And that way when you drain the oil, the engine block and all the surfaces are nice and clean. So that way when you pour your new oil into the car, it is as clean as possible. So now that our oil has reached operating temperature, I've gone in and poured in the Liqui Moly engine flush and set a timer for 15 minutes to allow it to idle with the stuff in it and obviously clean out any carbon deposits that may have built up in the oil. Now, for those of you wondering, with this product, it's recommended that one bottle you use for 3 to 5 liters of oil. Because this car holds 6 liters of oil, that's why I'm using 2 bottles, and each bottle is 500 milliliters. So now that 15 minutes has passed, we'll turn off the engine and get ready to drain the oil. Now, before we drain the oil, of course, we do need to take off the bottom pan. And to do that, most Volvos, it'll be a T25. My car being a high mileage hero, it's got a mix of Phillips heads, zip ties, and one T25. And then once we do that, we can access the oil pan. All right, so now we're ready to drain our oil. We'll pop open our oil fill cap. That way there's an equal amount of air pressure and it'll help the oil drain just that bit easier. So now that we are underneath the car, here's our oil pan and here is our drain plug. Drain plug, to drain the oil, you'll need a 17 millimeter socket. And of course, I will warn you, the oil will be very hot. Obviously a turbocharged car can have a high oil operating temperature. So be prepared with your drain pan below. And make sure you don't make a mess and don't get burnt. So as you can see, the oil is pretty dark in color thanks to the Liqui Moly engine flush grabbing all those carbon deposits and darkening up the color a little bit as a result. Now it's going to drain into the pan. In the meantime, let's do a little bit of multitasking and tackle the oil filter. So doing the oil filter on this car isn't too bad, but a little bit of a strange process. The reason for that is, of course, it sits right down there. So you can see, so we have to take out this little intake tube. So to do that, our first step will be removing this 10 millimeter screw. Most cars will also have a 10 millimeter screw right here, but as you can see on my car, that screw is missing. And then we will need to unclip these two little guys right here. And to unclip those, we'll simply press in and lift up, and it should release pretty easily. Give it a little bit of a wiggle, and it'll pop right out. So now once we have these little tabs released just by lifting up on it, as you can see, it's gonna be a little hard on one hand. You'll notice there's an arrow pointing to a lock and unlock sign. That's because we have to lift up and twist this little guy to get it to release. So again, I'll try this with one hand. There we go, it pops out. And now we will simply lift it up and it actually pulls the bottom assembly with it, which is fine, makes it easier. However, there's still one more piece we do need to grab. And to grab this piece on the side of the intake, you simply pull it out, give it a little bit of a wiggle, and it pops right out, nice and easy. So to reach the oil filter housing on this car, you will need a 36 millimeter socket. That will go right there. And then I recommend using one of these little swivelly joints with a bunch of extensions or one long extension, and that way you can start to loosen it and it will pull the filter with it. So here you can see my setup with a little swivelly joint, and the extensions is obviously the intake manifold sits directly above, which is why you have to use a swivel joint. In this case, I'm using 2 6-inch extensions, but it seems to do the trick. So to replace the actual filter, pretty easy. Pull out the old one, insert the new one, just press it right on. So you'll see there's a little bit of a tube that goes around. And then a little trick for replacing the O-ring, if you do look alongside the threads here, there is actually an opening where you can put a little tiny screwdriver, so you can see right there, and that way makes it super easy to pop off the old O-ring, put the new O-ring on, and then we can reinstall this back into the car. Now one tip when you are putting on a new oil filter, make sure it is all the way in, as you can see with the little ring inside, and you'll actually hear a little bit of a clicking noise it makes, a nice pop, and that way you know it's all the way inside. And now we will thread on the piece onto the oil filter housing. There actually is a torque spec for this, believe it or not. 25 plus 5 Newton meters, so essentially 30 Newton meters, or if you just tighten it by hand, it should stop spinning. Now that our oil is drained, our filter is in, our next step will be to put in the drain plug with the new crush washer. Torque spec for this is 35 Newton meters. So before we pour in the new oil, we do need to put the tube for the intake back on. And to do this, my general recommendation is to start with the bottom kind of L-shaped piece. This simply clicks into the side of the airbox housing, and then you twist the other piece to the top of it here. And you'll see there's these little kind of triangle trapezoid sticking out pieces, and that's what hooks the actual rubber that goes to the front here, and that's where the cold air enters into the intake system. Now, if you do struggle with this, my trick I do recommend is actually pre-attaching the rubber piece outside of here before you attach this L-shaped piece into the airbox, because on the bottom it simply clicks in. That's easy. The hard part is the twist on the top here. So here I have the piece pre-assembled with the top twisted on, as you can see. And now what we're going to do is simply insert it into the side of the airbox and click it on in. So now our next challenge comes in, the final piece of the airbox system. So this piece once again twists and locks into the tube here. What I generally recommend is start crooked with the piece, and then as you twist it and angle it, like so, then click it into these two tabs here, and that'll be good to go. Obviously then put in the two screws. Now the Volvo C30 holds approximately 6 liters of oil, so I'm first going to add in the 5-liter bottle on the right. Then I'm going to add in the MOS2 anti-friction additive. And then from there, I'm going to check the level with the dipstick, run the car a little bit to make sure the oil filter absorbs oil. And then obviously once the car is up to operating temperature, we will know the true oil level. And then we're done. Super, super simple process. So after adding our engine oil in, we will check for any leaks. And then of course we'll put our bottom pan back in, run the engine, let it fill up the oil filter, make sure that our oil capacity is at the correct level, and then take it for a drive, get it up to operating temperature, and check it once more, and then we're done. So now that our oil level's corrected, here's a fun little detail. Many people don't know, but the little corner label there on the Liqui Moly 5-liter bottles is actually a little sticker you can put on, say when your last oil change was, or when your next oil change is, or write whatever you want, but cool little thing. So there you go. That's how you do an oil change on a 2009 Volvo C30 T5 R-Design. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want to see more DIYs. As always, please subscribe to the channel for more content. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.